Santa Barbara paper, one of the high school teachers forwarded that editorial to all the staff at the high school. In other words, in support of the decision we made.
Okay.
She was called into the principal's office and told to mind her own business.
This was also was a cause of the attempted removal of another school board member.
Oh, correct. And we had one school board member that they tried to recall. That was after the May meeting. They didn't try to recall me because I only had 6 more months to my term and it wasn't legal to do that.
Right.
She wasn't recalled successfully. They tried to basically remove the other board member that voted for it by intimidating her son, and there was an obscene website, and both her son had to leave the school district as well as Miss grandson, because of the issues of it was unsafe. They weren't comfortable.
So it became, we had the complaints with Eli, with the Office of Civil Rights, and that the bullying and stuff that was happening within the school, but it was also happening amongst the board.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in May, when we were supposed to vote again, which we never did, at that meeting there were about 700 people in the audience. There were 12 sheriffs there who we were paying to be there. We were escorted to our vehicles when we left. They were going to patrol our homes through the night. They were afraid of violence. And I ended up spending the night at a friend's house. I mean, I really didn't feel like I wanted to go home and have people patrolling, and I didn't feel safe myself.
Right. Yeah, and I think, throughout this, AIM, American Indian Movement, was called to come forward and aid the Cordero family because of this. So, we're used to dealing with situations such as this, and it was got to the point that we had to call in the Department of Justice because we realized that they were operating in a manner that was not really safe on the front for everybody.
Correct.
So the Office of Department of Justice came in, and we had a meeting with the superintendent of schools and some of the local sheriffs and so forth, so we can go over safety issues because of these issues that you're speaking of.
Right, but before the May meeting, I had called the Department of Justice.
Okay.
I had spoken with them, Chicago branch. I had talked to people in Los Angeles. I had called the local sheriff's department, and every attempt that the board members who voted in the majority to remove the imagery, every attempt we would make, and of course there could only be 2 of us who could talk to the superintendent at any one time because of the Brown Act, any efforts we made to get a civil rights attorney to write up a report, to have education going on in the schools with the children as well as with the community, every single effort was not only stalled but was totally ignored.
Yeah, and throughout, after the attempted resyndication of the original decision, the school board decided, was it the school board or was it the superintendent of schools, decided to form a advisory committee for the native imagery. Now, how did that occur?
Actually, what happened when there was a board meeting in May, several weeks after the vote, it was the attorney who kind of worded it in such a way when we refused to re-vote the issue because there was nothing to vote on.
Right.
We had made a vote, it was a majority decision, and we wanted to remove the imagery. So when that happened, the attorney tried to word it in such a way that there would be a committee.
Okay.
And my feeling, and I think the reason we more or less agreed to it, was because this was going to be a committee of Native Americans who would be looking at that imagery to let the community know why those images were offensive.
Okay, so Amrita, you mentioned that the formation of this Native American Imagery Committee, and your understanding was that this was going to be a committee of Native American people that were going to review the imagery.
Correct.
Okay, and can you elaborate on that?
Well, what happened was this was in May when we had this meeting with those hundreds of people who were there and the police security and all of that. Then it was decided this committee could not possibly be formed till the middle of July. Actually, we would meet in July to discuss it and form a committee.
Okay.
So there were a lot of delay tactics, continual delay tactics. We kept encouraging, Ms. Grant and myself, kept encouraging the superintendent, let's do some education in the community, because until the groundwork is ready, how are you going to change public opinion?
Right.
But that was, of course, not going to happen. And no, I then did contact that office, the Office of Civil Rights, and asked to speak to them because I was going out of the country to teach abroad for quite a few months, and I knew that during that process they wouldn't be able to get a hold of me. I wouldn't be available. So the woman was quite surprised to hear from me, like, how did I know about this and how could I have the case number and so
Right.
forth. And I explained to her, you know, I'm a board member, and I was legally still a board member at that time for a few more days. And I felt it was important that I speak with her. Then I was out of the country for quite a few months. When I returned, you know, of course, even during the time I was gone, I was in communication with people here, heard about what had happened the night that the new board voted on the issue to retain the imagery, which was against what the committee had said to begin with. So the whole thing was completely contrived. And I again contacted the Office of Civil Rights, and I said that I felt that they needed to hear from us, as Ms. Grant also did, as Ms. Deerdorf also did. And we communicated with them, and I said, I don't think you understand what's going on. I mean, why don't you listen to some of these committee meetings? I mean, listen to the anger and the hostility and the threatening behavior of these people and the way they're treating others.
Did it sound like the decision was based on pressure rather than, you know, you mentioned before that you had done your homework, reviewing psychological reports and, of course, the high suicide rates and so forth. Do you think that there was adequate information that was provided to the board on the other side, which was the removal of the mascot? Because I know that there was educational support that was given to the board.
Well, yes. I mean, when we had our meeting where we were going to vote, which was April 22nd, we were given a packet. We had already received Eli's packet. We were given an additional packet that listed a variety of things, including the U.S. Office, you know, Commission on Civil Rights and other things that I felt were very much in support of the decision to remove the imagery.
Yes.
So there was information. The kind of information that didn't exist was adequate information to parents, to alumni, to students. There was no education going on in the schools, and every time we would ask for it, there would be delay tactics. And
how many times have they kept one promise? They kept one promise they kept. They promised to take all of our land, and they're doing it.